We're really lucky here in Tasmania for visitors, whether they're locals or visiting the state. Opportunities for bushwalking are everywhere really. No matter where you go within Tassie, there's always a bushwalk within quite a close vicinity. There's iconic walks in the state. People come from all over Australia, all over the world to walk things like Overland Track, Three Capes Track, head to Maria Island or Freycinet.
Tasmania, sitting Southern Hemisphere, basically at the edge of the world. Next stop is practically Antarctica, a little green gem in the Southern Ocean with a couple of oceans around it. There's just so much opportunity here. If you're into a 2-hour walk that'll enable you to escape daily grind, or a multi-day walk over the course of many, many weeks, you can find that in Tasmania. And then you've got 60 Great Walks of Tasmania, which was a really great initiative by Parks and Wildlife. Focuses on some of the greatest day walks that exist in Australia, but we've got classics from the Overland Track, very popular, the epic journeys on the South Coast Track in the remote Southwest National Park. Huge diversity and just so many different ecologies and cultural elements associated with Palawan Pakana history, early pioneers and miners history across the state, and it's just super interesting.
There are so many different types of walks people can do in Tasmania. Tasmania is a perfect destination for bushwalking because it has everything. You can walk on the coast, you can walk in the mountains. It's all in one little tiny island package.
Well, I do love bushwalking. I discovered the outdoors and bushwalking when I just needed to get out and do something for myself without having to kind of coerce anyone into coming with me and just spend some time in the mountains. So I'm a long distance bushwalker. It makes me really happy and feeds my soul.
I love outdoors and I love bushwalking. I love being outside and moving my body, and also feels like my brain and body are engaged. Go for a walk with someone who knows a little bit about the place. You get another layer of story and meaning. We've got some of our guides who have done our walks 100, 150, 200 times, and no walk's ever the same because of the people and the weather and the plants.
What I love about bushwalking is just the simplicity of walking through the day, stripping it back, one foot in front of the other, worrying about your meals and just taking in the nature. So it's really hard these days to disconnect, and so the opportunity to turn your phone off and just enjoy the scenery.
At parks, we want to make sure everyone enjoys their trip and walks safely. There's a few key rules. Make sure you're prepared and have your gear ready. And make sure your walk is planned and you tell someone about it before you go. We also encourage you, when you're on the track, to make sure you write in the logbook when you depart, and be flexible. Make sure you can change plans if the weather turns. We also recommend checking out our website before you depart and visiting our alerts page to make sure there's no closures or fires, any emergencies in the tracks that you're planning to walk through.
We're really lucky here in Tassie to be able to operate in the World Heritage areas, and of course they've been identified for so many different reasons, and it's something that we take a lot of pride in as operators and as guides to educate our guests. It is really important for us to do everything correctly, consult with the right people before we head out on the trails, and make sure we're following all those leave no trace and minimal impact recommendations, just so we can take care of the country that we're walking on. I think that our guides in particular are very conscientious of the role that they play, and our guests that we have take on the trails also are choosing a guided tour because they care and they want to learn. So they're really receptive to everything that we're telling them about the environment and how to take care of it, spreading the word, becoming advocates for wilderness heritage areas.
There are 7 Leave No Trace principles that we encourage all walkers to follow. And the basic principles of Leave No Trace are: take out what you take in, leave the area untouched and as you found it, and make sure that you respect the area for the use of other people. We have visitor centres around the state, and we encourage you to talk to our staff if you've got any questions. Make sure you visit those centres before you go walking, and you can also buy your park entry passes and any products available for parks experiences, including our cave tours and our iconic walks.
Throughout our whole trip, it's all about educating our guests around how to perhaps do this in their free time in a safe way and in a responsible way. We'll often encourage our guests to make sure that when they're walking along the beaches, they're keeping an eye out. If they find rubbish, we always take it out. We're telling them all the leave no trace principles for our trip. But also part of your role is helping them stay on top of that, reminding them that if they're needing to go to the bathroom, where they should be doing that, staying away from water sources or putting their banana skins in their bags, simple things that they may not think of. Freycinet, we have many beaches, but because we do have lots of different shorebirds here in Tasmania, it's really key that we actually make sure we're staying to that wet sand to avoid any potential little eggs that may be there. They also love to just hide out up there, and some of them are so little that unless you're really looking at the ground, you may not notice them, so really important.
Maria Island is an amazing little place, a little island just off the east coast of Tasmania. Has some amazing natural and cultural values. Home to the Piquiliti for tens of thousands of years, had a plethora of whalers, sealers, early explorers, entrepreneurs, farmers, and then a national park in the 70s. It's also a beautiful destination for bushwalking. There's some amazing walks. You can climb mountain peaks, beautiful white sandy beaches, pristine blue waters, walks for all abilities over on Maria Island. And of course the wildlife. These days it's known as sort of a Noah's Ark of rare and endangered wildlife. It's home to 11 of the 12 endemic bird species in the state and lots of really cute marsupials. One of the best places in Australia to see a wombat.
I think there's many things to love about walking in the Freycinet National Park. There's so many different options for where you want to do, whether you're keen for like a big mountain day, you're climbing up the huge Mount Graham, watch those beautiful rocky landscapes and the views, or perhaps you're more interested in having a nice day along the coast, doing some beach scouring, looking at the shells, seeing the shorebirds. But also our geology is incredible. It's pink granite everywhere. It's all around you, constantly looking at it. The beaches are what was once the hazards or part of Mount Graham. Have a bit more of an in-depth with a guide there, explaining to you why that's there and how it's changed over the years and what may not have changed. What you're looking at was what Tasmanian Aboriginals were looking at 42,000 years ago.
The Overland Track is really special because it's really interesting geology and then some really interesting plant species that come out of that niche environment. The weather, the conditions, the geology all combine to create these really niche environments for interesting plants and animals to grow and call places their home. There's also really interesting Pakana Tasmanian Aboriginal history because of the changing weather and climate over the years. The stories that are layered in those landscapes are really, really interesting and speak to tens of thousands of years of using these places and traveling through these spaces. And then all of that combining together. And then with more recent European settler history with the Skinners and the people that came and tried to build a life in Tasmania up in the Overland Track and surrounds, and then also the people that worked really hard to make it a national park and protect it. Just all of these different stories and all of these different meanings that the place has to people all come together, and that's why I think it's really, really special and important.
Takayna in the northwest of Tasmania is a very, very unique place. Geologically quite different to the rest of Tasmania for starters. We've got the largest cool-temperate rainforest in the southern hemisphere. Occupies large tracts of the area, but it's not just the forest. You've got a really highly dynamic ocean environment, really biodiverse sedge plant environment with the buttongrass plains and the mountain ranges also that flow through the Takayna. It historically has had very important Indigenous occupation over many, many thousands of years.
Takayna for me is not just wilderness, it's an amazing cultural landscape. That's something that we always have to remember talking about that area of Tassie. There is incredible wilderness out there, but there is also incredible Indigenous history on the coast, but also in that forest environment too. It's complex, incredible.
Takayna people, their descendants are still in northwest Tasmania and proudly part of that landscape over many, many generations. You see that evidence of their living and being at one with the land.
The Three Capes track in Tasman National Park is special. It's along a coast, but then when you do the walk, you see these massive dolerite cliffs, the seagulls, the seals, all of the animals find their home in amongst these really, really interesting geological features. And then also the different habitats and environs. I was completely surprised to find like cloud forest. There's rainforest in the middle of the Three Capes track. You're walking along, you've got coast and gums, cloud forest, and a completely different set of plants. And then also again, it can speak to Tasmanian Aboriginal connection. There's also Port Arthur, penal colony, and this modern European history on the island. So you can get all of these different stories coming together and surprising you along the way.
We have like a lot of pretty high professional folks coming on the trip. They're just really trying to disconnect and kind of shake a bit of responsibility in the world. And they're looking to connect with the country and be somewhere that clears their head and space and kind of get away from the hustle and bustle, which everyone's kind of experiencing, and just to really soak it all in and have that full nature experience, which they're getting down here in Tasmania.
We live in a pretty fast-paced world these days, and what we really find is people are really changing on the longer trip and actually slowing down again. It takes days to do so in this modern time, but it's so important to immerse yourself. Bushwalking tour is a great way to do that because all you're thinking about is being in place. So that sense of connection is really being lost very quickly in modern society, but it can be restored with wilderness experiences like we offer.
Connection to nature, developing a sense of place. As bushwalkers, we explore naturally places that we go and walk through, but we also then connect to certain places that we, particularly as guides, come back to. We always learn more and more about the places that we walk through and share with our visitors, and just having the time to slow things down and think about the basics and just the ability to recharge your soul and your mental space. And bushwalking certainly allows you to do that in a relatively safe environment pending your choice of bushwalk.